I think a lot of Red Wing fans are excited about JT Compher. He's familiar with the east side of the state, played at Michigan. Obviously, he was part of a rebuild with the Avalanche and now kind of gets to do the same thing in Detroit. What excites you about him?
Well, when you look at JT Compher, you know, he's coming off a career season. He had 52 points with a really stacked Avalanche roster. I mean, you talk to some of the players that have, play on that roster. It's, there's a lot of talent there. And so he played a key role when they went through some injuries. And he was playing center. He was playing right wing. He was playing on the power play. He was playing on the penalty kill. So he's kind of like that. It's that so-called Swiss Army knife type player that you can put anywhere in any situation, and you could probably depend on that player to get the job done. And then obviously there's there's the ties that he has with Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp, all at University of Michigan playing hockey together. And that right there could very well be your a 1-2-3 punch. I don't think you're going to see a ton of offense. I mean, JT Compher, he still has yet to score 20 goals in an NHL season. So, that's something that, we're going to want to keep an eye on just because you want to temper expectations with it. But of course, I think that he could be in a position to come here and maybe like continue to grow and be, able to chip in more offensively.
Right. And he signs a 5-year, multi-million-dollar contract. It shows obviously the Red Wings want to invest in him. What do you expect to see maybe in those 5 years?
Well, I mean, yeah, as it stands right now, JT Compher is the third highest forward on the Red Wings roster. So right behind Andrew Kopp and of course Dylan Larkin. So when you look at it in that way, that kind of tells the whole story. I think Steve Yzerman is going to lean on these three guys to be that core of leadership. We don't know exactly what the roster is going to look like on opening night. They have a lot of players right now, and they're probably going to have to do some trades. They're going to have to do some trades, or they're going to have to get rid of some players. So I think when you look at Dylan Larkin, Andrew Cobb, JT Compher, all veteran players who have been in the league a while. I think that's going to be your core going forward over the next at least 3-5 years, like you said. So that's kind of, I think, the expectation is that he's going to be a leader and he is going to be able to be there to do whatever the team needs him to do.
Yeah. And where do you think Daniel Sprong fits into that mix? Is he more of like a short-term solution?
Daniel Sprong's an interesting one for me because he lit it up with Seattle last season, and he played like very little minutes, kind of like a specialty type player, and that's probably what he's going to be here in Detroit as well. But there's just so much upside there. As a 20-goal scorer, those are always good to have, no matter what, and especially on the power play, he's going to be a big part of that power play, which has struggled a lot in recent seasons. So, to get a trigger man like Sprong in there, on a cheap 1-year deal, that's good. It's one of those, show me deals. And, if he comes out and he puts up 20 goals and he chips in on offense and on special teams, he's going to get himself another contract in Detroit if he wants to stay.
Yeah. And on the defensive end, the Red Wings pick up Justin Holl. He has been maybe
Yeah.
one of the more criticized signees coming from Toronto. What do you make of that selection there for the Red Wings?
Well, yeah, I totally get why some feel a little bummed out or upset about that. It's not that Hull is a bad player at all. He's what I would consider just a perfectly average NHL defenseman. He shoots right. He can play on the penalty kill. And these are two things that the Red Wings needed to address this offseason: was a right shot defenseman and one that would be able to play 20 minutes a night. And Justin Holl is capable of doing that. He's probably not going to put up big numbers on offense, but he's the type of guy that you can put out there and more often than not depend on to be a stout defenseman and a stout defender who can kind of help your forwards a lot. And if he buys into the system, who knows? But it's not the greatest signing, but it filled the need for this team, and that's a steady depth defenseman. That's one thing that everybody needs to remind themselves of, is none of these all of these signings that they made, most of them are depth players. So that's one thing that people are just going to have to remember. He's a steady depth player, and that's what they paid him to be.
I know the Red Wings have been looking for a reliable backup goalie for a little bit now. Maybe they get that in James Reimer. What do you think of him?
Well, we'll see. At one point, Reimer was a really, really, he put up great numbers. Last season was pretty ugly for him. So again, this is a show me type deal. And they signed another goalie as well, Alex Lyon, who just played, with the Florida Panthers, and he played really well, on a team that as everybody watched, fought into the playoffs. He was a big part of that. So, I mean, they've got Alex Lyon and they got James Reimer, and I think that it's going to come into training camp with those two battling out for the backup slot to Ville Husso. So, I would guess that James Reimer might have the outside edge, but I think that people shouldn't sleep on Alex Lyon. I think that he might have a chance to be that backup goalie, because they want Ville Husso to be the full-time starter. They don't want to do this 1A, 1B anymore. They want him to be the full-time starter. So they're going to need stability there, and both of those goalies will provide that for now. But I think I would rather see Alex Lyon get that shot. But we'll see what happens in camp.
Sure. And either way, we're going to see likely one of them here in Grand Rapids at some point. And, they're signing all of these veterans now in the free agency period. What do you think that means for Grand Rapids, and who can we expect to see here come next season?
Well, I mean, this is going to be really tricky because, like I said before, there's, they have a lot of players on this roster right now. You can only have, so many, 23 on your roster. So, they're going to have to probably make some moves, come opening night. And I imagine that players like Simon Edvinsson might be, the odd man out, but he could still come out and have a great offseason, or a great camp, and, he could find himself, make his way into it. But, I would think that Gustav Lindstrom will probably maybe end up on waivers at some point. But, he's a right shot defenseman, so we'll see. But I think, you're definitely going to see Marco Kasper at some point. You're going to see Simon Edvinsson at some point. And you never know. You might see a guy like Jonathan Berggren, if it really came down to it. I think that would be a pretty last resort type move. But, I think there's still some possibilities of trades to happen to kind of even things out. But, yeah, Grand Rapids is going to have a pretty interesting year in terms of talent. They're going to have a lot. They're going to have a lot going on. And, I don't think fans should be too worried about that team right now. I think it's going to be well loaded.
Awesome. And there's obviously been a lot of buzz around guys like Compher, Hull, and Reimer, but are there any of the guys they picked up in this free agency period that particularly excite you, that might be slept upon right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest one for me has to be Shane Gostisbehere. If you watched hockey over the last, decade, his name. He's a left shot defenseman. He played with Philadelphia for a while, and then he bounced around. But they've signed him for a 1-year deal. I think it's like just north of $4 million for the annual value of it. So the cap hit is fine, and it's a 1-year deal, so it's very low risk. He can play on the power play. He can play 20 plus minutes, and he's not the most stout defenseman, but he definitely will. He definitely makes that blue line better for sure, and I'm really happy with that signing, along with the Sprong signing, because I think those are the types of players that Detroit needs. Are those those maybe not going to light it up on the score sheet, but they can come out and play really well every night, and they can chip in, on offense, on special teams. So yeah, don't sleep on Shane Gostisbehere. Don't sleep on Daniel Sprong. Those are good players, and I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed here a little bit longer than a year. We'll see, though.
And so far, when you look at all the players that they, either re-signed or just picking up to join the team this season, how do you sum it all up? And do you think Steve Yzerman has a good vision here? And how do you analyze that and what he's done so far?
I think a lot of people are confused by a lot of the moves that were made, both in the draft and in free agency so far. I think what Steve Yzerman is doing is he knows that he has the core players. He has Moritz Seider, he has Dylan Larkin, and then you have a cast of really good veteran players who can be impactful. Guys like David Perron, Dominic Kubalik. When you mix that in with some of the other veteran players that they're bringing in through free agency, that's creating a support cast for players like Dylan Larkin, for players like Moritz Seider. And I think that's what Steve Yzerman is going for. And right now, going into the season, if we were not to get any more moves or any more trades or anything like that, I'd probably peg them as a fringe wildcard team. But the possibility of Alex DeBrincat being traded out of Ottawa, that's still very high. It's going to drag on, apparently, as we're all watching. But I don't know. I still think that makes a lot of sense. And that would be a key addition that might take this team into the next level of being a contender. So I think Steve Yzerman has to weigh his options here. And he has to figure out, does he want to make that gamble right now, or does he want to wait it out? I think he has the assets to make that gamble and bring in that potential 30-40 goal scorer who can take you to that next level, because they need that really bad. Offense has been really tough for them, and goal scoring is going to be a major concern unless they make some more moves going into the season.
For sure. And I think Steve Yzerman is a guy that likes to gamble overall. And just some of the moves we've seen in the last couple seasons, right?
Yeah. He's kind of a calculated gambler, almost. He has a great poker face, that's for sure. I don't think anybody would deny that. But I think he is a calculated gambler, and he will do it when he feels it's the time and he feels most comfortable doing it.
Well, all right. Anything else you want to add?
No.